Let's go to work, 'cause I'm tripping. Gotta work on myself, 'cause I'm falling apart. Please wake me up, 'cause I'm slipping. Can't fight this feeling off no more. But I'm not going to give up and fall. Rise above it all, meet all my challenges and search for my strength. I defeat them all, I'm never ever gonna hide no more. I come to love myself again, yeah. For all the things I didn't know, the pain, the hurt, I let it go. Start to believe in myself and life will be sweet again, so sweet again. Above it all, beat all my challenges and search for my strength. I defeat them all, I never ever gonna hide no more. I come to love myself again, again. For all the things I didn't know, the pain, the hurt, I let it go, let it go. And I start to believe in myself, and life will be sweet again.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, it's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. What am I doing here? I don't even know. I haven't had breakfast. Of course, I'm fat, so it's okay. I haven't had breakfast. My stomach's kind of like, dude, we should eat. And I'm just like, yeah, you don't even want to eat. You're not even hungry. What's happening is that the all of the nagas living in my intestines, the living snakes, have developed a pattern, and they rely on this pattern to reinvigorate. The entire world is living inside of my intestines. Yours too. I'm not trying to say I'm like all that. I am all that, but so are you. It's a very complex world. Am I muted? I hope I'm not muted. I don't even know. Yeah, you should be confused. I am more confused than you are. I don't know why I'm here. I don't. I was sitting here typing away on my computer. I was sending some prints to the robot machines that I have enslaved under my stairs. Being a good minion, calling myself magnanimous as I waltzed around the house as the robots were up all night working. And I was drinking coffee and reading Twitter. And I saw a news report. And the news report was someone in Nashville shot some people, and some people died, and there was a school involved, and I watched this unfolding. I watched the most clarified deja vu unfolding that I've had in a while. I actually have this a lot, especially with people. 6 months ago, I said that, maybe it wasn't 6 months, maybe it was 5.78 months ago. I said the truth movement is going to begin to cannibalize itself. And whether or not you see that, whether or not you understand that, it doesn't really matter to me, because I watched that clarity unfold. But because I said it so long ago, there is a respite between the times where I say something and the times that things happen, and people forget. I don't. But the times that I remind people, hey, I said this, I always feel kind of like an asshole, like I'm trying to rub it in someone's face. I'm really not. I'm trying to gain a little bit more footing, because the next time that I tell you, hey, guess what? In 3 months, this is going to take off. It'd be fucking great. It'd be fucking great if a few more of you who spend all of your time bitching right now about this would remember what I said. But you're not. Why would they remember that? There's no reason for them to remember that. It serves them in no way, shape, or form to know that James True might have some insight into exactly how this is going to unfold, and why and where. And the why and where are what everyone does, because everyone jumps on the concept of, if we find out the details of this incident, we will solve the problem. Or worse, if we find out that this was fake, we will totally somehow win, and everyone will feel our demise. That's the bigger, larger, more pathetic one that I see. I have lost my loyalty to a team. This is the tricky part. Your chair looks like a chunch lady bending over in back leggings. My chair looks like that. Okay. I gotcha. There's a logo underneath it, Ahmad. And I don't know who the logo is. I don't support any particular organization. And I love the feeling of that cloth. So if it's okay, I'm just going to leave it there. And we're just going to maybe talk a little bit more about this subject instead. And that we're going to maybe consider this idea a little bit, even though it's a little bit tepid, maybe it's even a little bit hard. It's one of the reasons why I came on Tuesday. I feel I've live streamed on Tuesday knowing that I could slip in, because there's loyalists here who like to get their ball sacks stroked, and they come here because they want me to make them feel better. They want me to reinforce their beliefs and tell them things to allow them to manifest a little bit more fuel. And I just don't have that today for you. I have something, but it's not that. When you think about this deja vu that unfolds, that we're watching the transcript unfold, where two different sides, one whose archetype is stubborn, versus another whose archetype is that we will never forget, and that those two archetypes that we've decided are the best way to create a justice is by incorporating those two, animizing those two archetypes and saying that's what we have. And that this is one of the reasons why we run around looking for things to entertain us. We're looking for someone to entertain us because the complexity and the truth of the world is just so profoundly but hurtable that we just don't want to go there. And so we don't. We never do. We never do. And I mean everybody, including me, but I mean everybody. Yeah, did they find the passports? Exactly, Alexander. Exactly. And I just want you to know a few things. Because one of the things that bothers me the most about the red carpet rollout of how this always goes down is that we end up with this weird kind of tendency to really stick it in the gut of us, of who we are. Let me put it this way, because I wrote this earlier. The day we normalize suicide, all of the school shootings will disappear. The day we normalize it. And that day, the people that are bitching about assault rifles, they can go back to not being outraged anymore. And I want you to think about the outrage that you see right now as a kind of feeding, as a kind of mass seagull feeding, where okay, so I was going to say the band of seagulls, and I said that because I didn't want to confuse anyone if I said a flock of seagulls, because I was afraid they might, check this out, misinterpret me as talking about a band. So in my mind, I thought the way to fix this is to change it to a band of seagulls, which means deep down, I really wanted you to picture the band, a flock of seagulls right now. I'm asking, so let's all just get this out of our system. And let's picture a flock of seagulls. The band. I didn't even ask for this. This is why I should have eaten before this. But some of you may be in a realm where you don't even know who that is. A flock of seagulls. And, that's okay. That's okay. So now that that's out of our system, I can go back to the analogy, if you can remember that far back. The feeding that we're seeing during this event is akin to a flock of seagulls suddenly deciding, guys, there's only 3 of them. There's 60 of us. We can all have that hot dog, but we have to grab it at the same time. And there's a shedding of social rules, a shedding of social structure. And the natural law collapses upon itself, much like a wave, and people are allowed to finish whatever it is, right? Right? The switching over. You see this all the time. You'll see this at a mall on Black Friday, where the shoppers suddenly unleash their tribal nature. And they undergo this. And I'm here to tell you that we've been unleashing our tribal nature over events like this for a long time, that we wait for events like this. People wait for events like this, even though they happen every day. And when I'm telling you what happened was not a school shooting, what happened was a suicide. And that goes contrary to the very nature of everything that we're supposed to do. We have been told that we are supposed to punish the person who commits suicide by insisting that their life was not actually lost. We don't even count it in the numbers. Did you know that? Did you know that? And I don't think we should. I'm not asking us to immortalize anything. I'm telling you that when you look at what's happening, it has nothing to do with the finer nuances of the traffic camera that RV is going to do shows about for the next 3 months. The traffic camera footage is going to be the entire appetite of every single show for most of the truth market. Floating through Telegram right now is the electricity of every nuance that could ever cause doubt, and every nuance is being used to fuel whatever personal agenda everyone has, including me, and everyone's belief is being fueled in some weird fucking way, not by a school shooting, but by a suicide by cop. And that this happens every day, and that we build up like a pressure cooker. We wait for events like this, and then we can explode. This is the same act that got you here. Your mama and your papa exploded, right? They unleashed. You're asking, why am I talking about your parents having sex? But I'm telling you that it's the same creative matrix spirit. There is a tendency, there's a potential, there's a flock of seagulls, and there is suddenly a purge, right? That it suddenly unleashes itself, right? And you and I, what if we were truly being honest with ourselves, what would we say? We would say, I ran. I ran so far away. I ran all night and day. And did you get away? Sorry, I don't know the I don't know the lyrics, but and I'm jesting about it because I am tired of us pretending what's real around here. And more importantly, I'm tired of the anti-theory of that. The antithesis of that, of believing everything is real, the antithesis of that is believing everything is fake. And you know what? Both are fucking retards. Both are retarded. We walk around insisting how bad people are for whoring themselves out and believing NASA. And we whore ourselves out to these other ideas too. That, well, no, that guy's wearing an orange hat. And I'm telling you that it's pretty fucking likely that this event did occur. And that what's even more likely is that what it's being called is actually not accurate. And you feeding into what it's being called by saying it's fake are going after the very same fucking hot dog that everyone else is. James, why are you preaching to the choir? Because I'm an asshole. And I do that sometimes. You show up to church and you're like, James is going to turn to all of them. He's going to give them a speech about how pathetic they are for not understanding gun rights. Or for not seeing through the facade and seeing that it's fake, right? I'm telling you, these are the same fucking thing. This is the same hot dog. Mine? It's the same hot dog. It's the same fucking one. You just feel nuanced because not a lot of people are going for it, that's all. You're like, oh, well, if we go after this hot dog over here, we're different. But you're not. We're not. And I'll tell you something. If you can predict what the media is going to say, and it turns out that you go to the alternative media and you can predict what they're going to say, maybe it's not the alternative media after all. look at these hand gestures. Maybe it's not those things after all. Maybe you are listening to the same media. You just think that because it's counter, that it's somehow different, and it's not. You know what's different media? Suicide broke out at a school, and because we are not allowed to normalize suicide, we have to wait for shit like this to happen. And if we were to normalize suicide, first of all, half of you would instantly say I'm insane and I'm dangerous and you would fucking cut me off. And I think you should go ahead and do that now, because you're not being honest with yourself about who you're listening to. Because I'm a utilitarian, which means I do what works. And what works is when a kid sticks his fork in a socket, you do not send him a letter asking him to attend a PowerPoint ceremony on April 2nd in the green room where refreshments will be served. No, you do what's required in the moment. You shock the fuck out of your victim. You install mind control, and you insist that this being feel cortisol the next time they try and stick a fork in the socket. And we call this evil. That's so evil, James. You're so evil, Luciferian. You're so evil. And I don't give a shit if you call it evil, because I need it to work. That's all I care about. My desire to not have the child shock himself is more important than your labeling me. And so I do, and this is utilitarian. This is American philosophy. This is something I try and explain as much as I can. But I'm doing that to many in an audience who are looking for an objective kind of reality. They're looking for something different than what I'm serving. It's a nuanced place, right? We're special kind of seagulls here. We're hybrids. We were brought into an underground lab. We were injected with an ancient elixir that caused our consciousness to dilate. Inside of every cell, we were given this invigoration juice. And it was called poison at the time. And it did this to us. It shaped us into who we are. And we see these things now. Right? We see things now that we don't even necessarily want to see. I walked along the avenue. I never thought I'd meet a girl like you. Meet a girl like you with auburn hair and tawny eyes. The kind of eyes that hypnotized me through. And I ran. I ran so far away. I just ran. I ran all night and day. I couldn't get away. Boom, 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 boom. That was 1982. Boom, 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 boom. Normalizing suicide worked. Will work. But we'd have to all do it at once. That we couldn't have just the cool moms do it. That we need a massive shift in psyche and consciousness, and that if you really wanted to fix school shootings, the first thing you'd do is go home and talk to your teenager and tell them that one of those most powerful things that they have a thermonuclear device in their hand right now. They have that little ball, and they push the little switch on it, and it turns red, and it makes a high-pitched whir. And they have that inside them. And at any point in time, they can activate that thermonuclear device, and it will destroy not just them. It will destroy their entire world. Now James, stop. I don't like where you're going with this. I know you don't, which is why you shouldn't be here. Because this is all you're going to fucking get from me. I'm not going to be able to change this. There are reasons why people call me Luciferian. This is that reason. This evilness that you were about to, or that you think that you've already seen come from my lips, is why you should not watch me. Because I want to fix this. I don't want to feel better about this. I want to fix this. And we fix this in unison. We fix this overnight. We fix this by telling people you hold a thermonuclear device inside you that can destroy the entire world. And knowing that you will use that scares the shit out of me. And I cannot be intimidated. That I can't do it. That the moment I become intimidated by you having this device is the moment that you control me. And you are too young to control me. You're not ready to control another human. You may grow up and you may become a master of other men. I know this because there are men out there that want people to be their master. And that when you signed up to enter into a natural world with anarchy, which we have now, you agreed. Wait, I can want anything? And the answer is yes, you can want anything. There are consequences for everything, but you can want anything. And that when you agreed to that, you agreed that there would be people here that could want anything too. And maybe you didn't do the math, or maybe you did, but it turns out that there are people in this anarchy who want to be slaves. They want to be. And those people have children. And those people who are slaves who have children are raising and breeding what they hope will be more slaves. But that may not be the case. It may not happen. The children of those slaves probably end up shocking their parents. Probably end up scaring them some. And you're watching that shock now. And when we normalize suicide, all of this goes away because anyone who's wanting or looking at suicide is no longer being dilated by the fetish of how no one in the world is being truthful about it. This unleashes an excitement. The closest word I can give you to describe this excitement would be exhibitionism. And this is why suicide and attention seeking have a lot to do with each other, but are not exclusive to each other at all. What I'm trying to say is that there are eddies and currents that exist inside the realm of suicide that allow other teenagers, that allow other people to park their boat along that eddy and survive for a while and play with their thermonuclear device. And they only play with it because the fetish exists in society. Remember, if you repel something, you have a fetish. If you covet something, you have a fetish. It's the same thing. You don't get to pretend one is and one isn't. You don't. So the more we create these psychically charged areas, the more people will gather that are looking for psychic energy, whether it be suicide, whether it be... Guys, do you realize how hot it is for someone who's desperate for witness? Do you realize that someone who is absolutely desperate for witness, can you imagine how much witness they know they could get if they dressed up in drag and went to the public library and started reading books to children? Now, we can pretend that our outrage fixes this problem, and that's what we do, which is why this is such a deja vu, watching these same things roll out. But the utilitarian, the Luciferian in me knows, here's how you fucking fix it. Here's how you fix it. Removing the stigma is the thorn. Removing the thorn removes the inflammation. Removing the inflammation allows the witness to come in to see exactly what's wrong. And it's fixed. These are thermonuclear devices, and you cannot pretend. Same way gun laws. Same thing with, it's so funny, but the gun laws are the suicide laws. Gun laws are suicide laws. Gun laws are suicide laws. That when we pass a law saying that this special clip that holds this special gun that has this is the same as saying it's illegal to kill yourself. You can't kill yourself. You can't do it. And that there are medications that we will put you on instead. Because we cannot have a world where you have a thermonuclear device. You cannot have that much power. And the person that did this shooting hated themselves. And we shouldn't stop that. We are not here to try and create a society where people don't hate themselves, even though that's what people want to do. And why do the people want to do that? We must create a society where people don't hate themselves, because they do not want to admit that there's a society that has a thermonuclear device inside of it, because that would mean that they fucking die. And they're not ready to admit that they die, because that, for some weird reason, is considered a negative topic. Why is it negative? Because these people want to feel negative about something. And having death in the room always be the fucking negative topic that no one can ever talk about allows them to feel dark and negative all the time, while pretending to be against the very thing that they have a fetish for. This is the entire anti-gun movement. This is the entire anti-drug movement. This is the entire anti-anti movement. All of the anti-movements work in this way. How do you get close to a fetish without admitting that you like it? You pretend to be against it. You don't even pretend. You become against it. And so now that you're against it inside, in your house, you've got this ability to dump and move energy, and it's available to you at all times. You will keep enemies in the same way. You will find people and keep them in your life because they serve a purpose, and that purpose could be to make you feel like shit. That actually could be a purpose that you would have and want. And if you understand the dynamic of you, I think you really start to see through this stuff, and you start to understand who the fuck you are. And it's a beautiful thing. You meet a beautiful person because you realize, holy shit, I am manipulative as fuck. And yeah, you know why? Because you've got nagas in your intestines pulling strings, telling you. What is nagas? This is Indian. It's an Indian word, a Hindu word. Sorry. Nagas were these serpent-like creatures, and these serpents were said to be from the underworld, from underground, right? I want you to think about where your intestines are. Your intestines are underground. The oracle of mythology is so strong that we take the archetypes of what's really happening. The truth is always in the room, but we can't always dress it in a way that we can admit. So what's not as close to being in our intestines, that would scare the shit out of us. So we say, no, these are serpent creatures that live underground. But they were a long time ago. They're all gone now. And they're not gone. They're in your intestines right now. Mine woke up this morning and was just like, dude, want some rye bread. Another essence down there says, and we want butter on the rye bread. And they're down there all the time. The nagas are down there all the time, giving you wisdom. I swear they're giving you wisdom. How are they giving you wisdom? Because they hold the keys to all of your serotonin. They get to decide what they're going to unleash and what they're going to let go. And your serotonin is the only way that you can flow, that you can truly have flow state. They hold these reins that are attached to you. You control them too, by the way, right? Your ego can invoke a certain diet, can invoke a certain pattern. And when we bring it back to suicide, we're looking at teenagers that have a thermonuclear device that really just haven't been shown why all this negativity is so important. Instead, they're showing, hey, don't be so negative. Hey, man, why are you being so negative? They're raised on and bred from that standpoint, which makes them more sociable, which makes them more acceptable society, which makes them more successful. There's not even a mistake to this. Which is why so much of learning is an internal journey. And that internal journey is going to either be made or not, and it's going to have nothing to do with the parents. It's not. Normalizing suicide ends gun violence. And the day we normalize it is scary as fuck. And every parent will insist, no, well, just wait. Fine, James, you can fucking normalize it, but I need you to do it in 15 years, you fuck. And that's what we've been doing for thousands of years. We've been doing that for thousands of years. And because we keep doing that for thousands of years, we need these kinds of narratives to flow, because we need a tricky algorithm that's going to pull the energy this way, then take a left turn, and then do a quick drop, and then do a right turn, and then go down this other thing, and then go forward, and then back again, then forward, then up and down. And then by the time, if you keep watching this Ruth Goldberg device of your own energy, you start to fall into the illusion that it wasn't yours. And this is what all of us are doing all the time. 24/7 is what we're doing. Teenage suicide gets talked about. Adult suicide, not so much. I disagree. I don't think so. I think what happens with the teenage suicide is that, hey, son, I just want you to know if you're sad that you can talk to me. And that, well, here's a little pamphlet on suicide. And when you read the suicide, it's like, here's a suicide hotline where you can call a complete fucking stranger. And that suicide hotline is going to be manned by someone that has a book, and that book does not have any utilitarian tactics in it at all. No. No, that book has a legal liability that says you cannot say suicide's okay. You can't do that. Are you fucking nuts? It's the very last thing you can ever say here. So no, I disagree. And I'm glad that we're disagreeing. It's okay. It's good we're talking about it, but I disagree with that statement. I don't think it's actually talked about at all. Not even close. Not even close. I don't even think we come near it. James, my son, completed suicide. Okay, so does this mean that there's the expert now? That we did talk about it enough? Because I see people commit suicide every day. I'm surrounded by those people. I've lost people like that every day. We can say that, well, no, this is about who was hurt the most. But I've done the same. I've tried the same when I talk about the military. Right? I've literally watched my father deteriorate and end himself. And it's the same kind of a framework. But I can't bitch about that because I would not be patriotic. And that all these contexts are set up the same. And maybe I shouldn't talk about it. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I'm not qualified because I don't have a child who committed suicide. I only have a parent, and it wasn't officially a suicide, so it doesn't fucking count. I guess that's where we're going. And we could do the same thing with NASA. We could do the same thing with everything the fuck else. But we do not talk about what I'm talking about. We don't. I do not know one suicide hotline that says, yeah, turn to page 6, thermonuclear device. Guess what, dude? You fucking have I do not know of that conversation. And it's already so hard to bring it up. I can't even fucking talk about this in my own airship because I'm told how negative I am and how dark I am. And so I try not to. And then I end up waiting. And then I see another school shooting and I watch the same deja vu. And I try and bite my tongue. And then sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's Tuesday and I haven't had breakfast and I'm fucking streaming when I shouldn't be. So maybe that's the case. Fine. You know, I've learned a lot lately. I should not be streaming a lot. Most of what I say is not palatable Most of what I say is going to make you uncomfortable, and you're not here to feel uncomfortable. Who the fuck would come here to feel uncomfortable, right? Oh, James is cussing. I don't know if I like this. Oh, you're so dark. Yeah, I know. This is why I shouldn't be streaming either. Because we're looking for the Good Morning America right now. And you'd love to hear me tell you about a theory I have that this newscast was fake. Or the fact that there's someone who's pretending to storm into a report on Fox News, by the way. National Fox News. That someone's pretending to storm on, and the reporter is all of a sudden rudely interrupted but conveniently clearing the way to make sure that this person is seen. And we're watching someone unload with the most factual advertisement about gun violence ever on Fox News. And we're all pretending, we're all insisting that this is different, that this is somehow news now, that this is somehow progress. But the dark Luciferian dude is the only one who's talking about empowering suicide. No, we've talked about that already. Or no, adults haven't. Whatever. Then I won't talk about it. Don't worry. Enough of us will shut the fuck up. Just keep doing it. Keep complaining about how hard these topics are. And we will shut up. We will. And this can go back to the way it was, because that's what we're waiting to happen. The 15 minutes is too long for people. 2 steps forward, wait 15 minutes. It's too long. So we're begging for Tartaria. We're begging for some kind of event that's going to take all this away and end it all tomorrow. So can you promise me that this will not fucking be real? That all of this will be a Mandela effect that will fucking disappear if I take the right drug? And the answer is yeah. If you watch this channel, it will fucking go away. And I would tell you to write this channel, but this guy talks about suicide sometimes, so you shouldn't. You should fucking shun that. You should go over here and look at this and check this out. And I get it. I do the same thing. I don't fucking turn on YouTube when I'm chilling out to fucking watch someone lecture me. Who the fuck wants that, right? Apparently however many people are online right now want that. I don't even know. It says 0 people online on YouTube to me. So I don't even know. I don't even say this to fuck. If I was in this for the audience, I think I'd be doing really well right now. I think I'd be doing really well. I could be telling you about the latest arguments online, right? I could pick a side between the last 2 feuds that are happening online in the truth movement. I don't know how to do this going forward. I can't even talk about something that no one talks about because we're told, we've already talked about that. Well, no, we don't. We don't fucking talk about that. And I get, you know why we don't talk about it? Because it's hard. Who the fuck's going to tell their teenager that? Is that any different than going up to the 5-year-old and saying, okay, now that I've fucking put some cortisol in you, here's a fork. I'm going to point at the socket and see what you'll do. I'm going to point at the socket and see what you'll do. And half of you were like, yeah, James, because that's fucked up. Who would do that? And you know what? I would actually consider that. I would actually fucking sit down on the floor with my 5-year-old and consider that. Why? Because I would want to feel comfortable in his field. Do you know why I want to feel comfortable in my son's field? Because every time he looks at my face, I don't want to inject cortisol into his face by looking at me about how terrified I am, because I know at any moment this guy could stick a fork in the socket. So maybe the better idea would be right after I've cortisol shocked him, set up a sacred clown Heyoka fucking moment where there is a giant case of silverware laid out in full stunning detail in front of a series of 4-port electrical outlets. One of them is a fucking 220 volt. And you administer a test. And you watch what happens. And do you know why you would do that? Because you want less cortisol flowing through your system when your son looks in your face. But I'm the dark one here. I'm the fucking dark one here who can't fucking deal with this. Who says things that people can't deal with. And every single bit of future of that child's life is in that moment when he's 5. The entire future is right there, and you get to decide, do I trust this kid? Do I trust the training in me? Or do I hope to fuck this work, squeeze my butthole, walk away, and squeeze cortisol into every fucking pore every time I see him with a fork in his hand? You choose. I'm not even telling you which is right. You know why? Because if you don't have enough fucking calories to do what I'm telling you about, I don't want you to try. I'd rather you put a fucking sign on that says it would be unpatriotic for you to stick a fork in here. And you love America, right? Why don't you fucking do that? Because that's what we do as we pass the buck down the line. Which is why you're already seeing people psychoanalyze the traffic light camera 3 blocks away from the shooting. And why every media outlet is going to be telling you the historical significance of a picture taken when someone was 9 years old. And you're going to insist you got to vote, and you're going to insist you cannot vote, you're going to insist that you have to vote against, and you're going to insist you have to vote for. Because that's the deja vu, that's the dance, because none of us want to actually look at our 5-year-old and say, dude, that's a fucking fork. Do you know what happens to the entire world when you shove that fork in there? This is all of your cosmology brewed into parenting. This is why we're parents. We are parents because we are learning God. We are learning the vitriol of God. And some of us are doing it right. Some of us are understanding how fucking painful this is, how important this needs to rip us apart, which is why we are invigorating the thermonuclear device. Autonomy, sovereignty. Cortisol is acid, although we should do a whole series about how cortisol is helpful. We really should, because we don't understand that when we're injecting cortisol into our kids' faces, we're doing that to help. That's us making that decision. Hey, look, I don't have the gusto to go full thermonuclear device with you right now. So I'm just going to give you cortisol instead. And I think that this is a free range activity. I don't think that there's ever a clinical hypothetical state where we can say, okay, parent, now how will you approach this? It's not going to fucking happen. What's going to fucking happen is that the parent's going to have X amount of sleep, X amount of fuel, and a bunch of nagas in their own intestines saying, oh, I would like some red wine tonight, or whatever the fuck it is that they're asking for. And that through that system of nagas, the underground reptilians living below the surface, dictating to you, telling you sacred wisdom from the oracle, and also leading you into some really, really, really interesting places that may not necessarily even be healthy or constructive for you. That in the middle of all those, at the worst possible time, at the least convenient time, at the time where you, with the least amount of energy, you are now asked to enact a giant creative act and administer something to your son. And at that point in time, you will have 17% of your warp core will be somewhat viable because of the long ass fucking day you just went trying to get through the Dagobah system. And that 17% of that warp core, yes, I'm mixing Star Trek and Star Wars, and that 17% of that warp core is all you have, and it will come through as cortisol. And you will still be a good parent. You will still be a good parent. Do you know why? Because if I told you you were a bad parent, all I'd be doing is adding to the cortisol too. And this is the lesson of God. This is why God said you get to be a parent. You get to see a glimpse of what it's like to be an autonomous being that holds a thermonuclear device that can completely take out this. By the way, I've been pretending that thermonuclear devices are real this whole time, okay? But that God had this device the entire time. And that what did he do? He trusted you with it. He fucking gave you one too. He gave you one too. And enough cortisol to squeeze out of every pore for as long as you need to do whatever it takes to survive. I can't think of a better teacher for this. Really is no right answer. Oh, now I can snort cocaine? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you know, that's not actually a novel idea. That I actually know parents. When I was a kid, I knew parents who believed that the way to teach their children about alcohol was to drink with them. In fact, I've had the privilege of like staying in like a lot of people's homes. I know that sounds kind of creepy, but it's like from the time of second grade until like 12th grade, like every summer for like 2 or 3 months, I was like staying in someone's home that I'd never met before ever. And I was usually like a night or two. And this is all over Europe, all over North America, South America. It was a really cool experience because you got to see just literally just over and over again different people, how they lived. And because you were in their home, that the intimacy was much richer than you could ever imagine. And there's something special about having that happen because you start to understand that there's really no right answers, that you're looking at a menagerie all around you. And I'll tell you something. I think it gave me more trust in humanity than other people have in humanity. And I think it's because I noticed how the home worked, and I just noticed that so much utilitarianism was there. So much of what worked was about what worked. This wasn't a decree. It was, what's going to work here, right? What actually is going to work? And did they know you were there? Yeah, they knew I was there. Yeah, they actually fed me. It was like a treasured guest sometimes in their home. Sometimes I'm sure that my behavior was horrible. I'm sure that sometimes these people were probably still talking about that rude American little shit that came to stay here. Who knows? I didn't have enough compassion then to form a bubble around what people were thinking about me, and I think that was a decision I made purely for survival. I don't think I could have survived that. I struggle with that now. Reading too much into what people say. Just hearing them, knowing how they feel. It's like, oh fuck, here's this person. Man, I thought we were friends. I guess not. Okay. Hey, this is the cortisols of our lives, right? This is why Flock of Seagulls sells songs. And I don't want this world to change. I like the bully movement. I like that there are bullies out there. What are you talking about, Lucifer? I like that there's bullies out there because it really makes me value friends. I really, really appreciate the fuck out of friends. I do. And if it wasn't for all the assholes or all the cortisol that I see from other people that aren't friends, I wouldn't feel that way. I would just kind of be like nonchalant about it. Just like, yeah, these are people and they're friends. Right? Like, you know, the fish water syndrome, right? I think it's terrifying. And I think, you know, you're a parent and you got to go to work the next day. And it's no different than being a parent and knowing that child, that 5-year-old's going to have a fork. That 5-year-old's going to have a fork when you're not looking. And I think that we lie to ourselves and insist, no, that's not the case. And if I put enough cortisol here, I flood the world with enough melanin. Really, I flood the world. I flood the universe with enough melanin that I stop rendering it. The cortisol cuts off your dopamine, which means your eyes are not able to render as clearly. In a lab, I can actually stop a mouse from seeing by inhibiting the dopamine receptors in his retinas. The mouse stops seeing. Why does a mouse need dopamine to see? Because your eyes are comfort vehicles. And when you find out someone that you think is your friend is not your friend, you have two choices. You can either see that, or you can flood it with melanin. You can inhibit the dopamine, and you physically won't see it. And our entire world does this. And you've been surrounded by people that don't see things that you see. And some of those things, you actually are not seeing it as clearly as you could because of you doing the same thing. That you will flood your own eyes with the cortisol. You will flood your own eyes with the melanin. And the whole time while you're flooding that, you're insisting it's someone else who's being negative. You're insisting it's someone else who's being the cortisol, or it's someone else who's being the Dark Lord, or it's someone else who's shooting the children. And it's not someone else. Someone else is not shooting our children. Someone else is committing suicide in a world where we have not authorized that to be okay. And no one is fucking talking about this. So stop telling me that. No one is talking about this. And the reason why no one is talking about it, because no one is willing to fix it. No one. No one is willing to take that chance. It's not fucking worth it. We do not trust our kids enough. We will never have that much faith in these children. And that comes back to them never having enough faith in themselves. What is God? How much faith does God have in himself? You can see it right the fuck now by looking in the mirror and finding your own thermonuclear device. If this world was flooded with less trust, there would be no flowers at all. A flower is an inverted genital, literally sticking its most vulnerable pieces into the air. If God was to flood this world with cortisol, the first thing you'd see is the flowers go. The bees go. All of it go. What is your system doing when you're not trusting your 5-year-old? But James, if I trust my 5-year-old, the 5-year-old could kill me. Their death would destroy me. Yes, I know. That's what you fucking signed up for. The 5-year-old is not a separate person. I know you know this as a parent, but I think maybe you haven't looked deep enough at this. Your placenta, it committed mitosis. Look up mitosis. You will see your placenta. I know those are drawings of cells, but that is your placenta. It's doing the same thing. And it's asking itself, can I trust myself? That's what childbirth is. You are asking yourself, can I trust myself? Can I trust myself? And you are allowed to fail miserably. God is allowed to fail miserably. Guys, what do you think the fucking dodo bird is? What do you think that is? Have you seen the mechanics of this bird? First of all, it can't fly, so I don't even know why we're calling it a bird. Okay. Right. You know, one of you like really fucking loves the dodo, and I only have a short enough attention span right now, so I don't even want to bust the balls of the dodo bird here. But there is no such thing as an imperfect decision. There is an alchemical opportunity. There is an alchemical opportunity at every corner. And if you take it, it's just as correct if you don't. It's just as correct, either one. Really what this boils down to is appetite for cortisol. How much trust do you have for yourself? How much trust do you have for others? I don't think you can ever trust yourself when you've given yourself true autonomy. This is what I mean. I know it's confusing. I'm having trouble even with the language for it. Trusting someone is not even. You learn this, I think, in love. Trusting someone is not feeling that they will never wrong you. That actually isn't trust. Trusting someone is not, this person will never cause me pain. That's not actually what trust is. That's predictable, is what that is. You can predicate that someone will never do that if you install enough fear or cortisol into them, right? They may never mess with you. You can beat a child into having a fetish objection to forks in general, and somehow amalgamate your way into this world where you feel safe in that way, right? You could predicate that child will not do that, I should say. Predict, I mean, you can predict. Trust really, I think, comes back to the symbiosis. There is a time where we're learning sovereignty, and I've been there, I'm still there. But I really notice that the larger wisdom, the larger lesson here is symbiosis. The amount of trust it takes to be symbiotic is unfathomable. It would be as hard as telling a 5-year-old to take this fork and stick it in the socket. It would be as insane as that. And I'll remind you, we live in a society where if someone found out that you told your child that, they'd lock you away. They'd lock you away. And we live in a society that would insist that suicide would never ever get brought up. And that we give them an award. You're a good parent. Why is that? Because you never mentioned the thermonuclear device. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I worked hard on that. Or worse, no one can talk about gun violence unless you're the person that actually had your child shot by a gun. Or no one can talk about suicide unless you're the person that has the most dramatic story about how their child died. That we end up out hot-dogging each other simply so we can turn it into a narrative again. Because the narrative means it's not real. This shit's hard, man. And I'm not asking any of you to fathom this. Not at all. But it takes courage to bring this shit up. And I don't need you to fathom it. But I need you to know that I've gotten enough cortisol from enough of you fucks to know before I say something what I'm going to get. I know that. I've been trained too. And one day, I think some of you already do, but one day you will notice. One day you will notice. One day you will go, holy fuck, that guy pushed back in like the most inopportune, unprofitable time ever. Why the fuck would he do that? Is he a Luciferian? Is he an imbecile? Is he a fucking idiot? Does he have conviction? Does he just see the world differently and he just keeps trying to explain it just because he thinks it might be helpful? Who the fuck knows? You get to decide. Your nagus gets to decide. The cortisol that flows through you gets to decide. All of it gets to decide, right? When I worked in the wilderness camp, I think probably out of the 13 kids that I had there, I think at least 8 of them had suicide attempts. At least one. But why do you believe something happened is the question, James. It's a great question, Legion James. I guess you're talking about the shooting. You're saying that it wasn't a shooting, that it was just a story that was written in the paper. And I'll tell you why I believe something happened. I'll tell you why. Because I've either watched or been caught thinking that something didn't happen and finding someone that zetetically did see it happen. And I noticed right away how much more profitable it was for me to pretend that it didn't. And I noticed how much more palatable and how much more cortisol came flowing into my system when I understood it did. And I noticed that I had a sheer profit simply if I'm saying, everything's fake, brah. Everything's fake. That by having that attitude, I was avoiding a lot of cortisol and missing the world. I don't think that media lies. I think that media spins. I don't think media lies. I think media spins. I don't think media actually has a choice at lying. I do not think that media has a choice at lying. I know that many of us think that they can just craft whatever and they can put it. I don't think they can. I don't think they have a choice. I think that this is a lot like a hot dog and a seagull. There's an opportunity. The opportunity is brought up by a moment. That moment is brought up by an actual event that occurred. And that what happens from that actual event that occurred is that everyone spins it. That's what I think media is. So I don't even think media is lying. I think that media is being more honest than most of us are capable of admitting to ourselves, because media is showing you the true, real, raw appetite of what's there. I think 9/11 was a controlled demo, and I think people died. A lot of truthers don't like that. They're like, well, that's not fun. James, that's not fun at all. Can't you mandala something? Can't you mandala and fix that? And it's like, no, I can't. Sorry. I can't. Same with Tartaria. It's like really sexy to think about that. Oh, yeah. The giant entire organization was here, but it was erased because we all have that much control over history. Do you know how sexy that sounds to feel that you have that much control over history? That every fucking arrowhead was like placed and the entire Civil War was a staged photo shoot. Have you actually heard these fucking people? Because you're looking at someone that's living the same fantasy as someone who's watching the news. But I can't say that because it's not cool, James, because it's not hip. What do you do? What, do you bring discernment into this? Why are you doing that? This is different kind of appetite. Which is why I don't think that I actually don't think my channel is going to survive in this way. I don't think it will. I don't think that I have the capacity to spin the yarns that the 15-minute appetite is going to require right now. That appetite's going to require some serious stories, some serious storylines right now. I'm still going to try. Fuck yeah. As long as there are patrons, I'll still try. I still will. I still am. But I don't have a very optimistic view over my future as a commentator, I should say. I'd love to still share and create content. I freaking love creating content. I really love it. I produced a new video yesterday. I play it, but I'm sure someone in the chat will be like, I don't want to play your fucking video. It's so okay. But I freaking love making content. I love it. It's exciting. It's ability to be a philosopher utilizing the same kind of tools. But in order for me to be a philosopher, I'm going to have to talk about shit that I follow the cortisol. I'm a cortisol hunter. It's a worm spice. And I'll tell you why I follow it. Because all the shame that I ever see in the world is always, every single time, not once has this ever not been the case. Every single time I find a giant pile of shame, there is the biggest, hugest, most colossal Gnostic truth hiding underneath it. It's like pearls. And you're diving down. Your lungs are just on fire. They're about to fucking explode. And you don't know which clam to grab. You don't know which one. But after you dive enough times, you start to get this intuitive feeling. You're somehow able to use sonar. You're compassionating every one of those shells, and you're determining which one of these has that pearl. And you get good at it. Or you get bad at it. And you drown. Either way, there's no wrong decisions here. There's no wrong decisions. There's either going to be a lot of cortisol or a lot of serotonin. And you need to take that up with the Nagas. Don't be blaming James True for that. Right? I love the show too. Thanks, Guard Charlie. What I mean is that I don't regret anything. I don't regret any of the stuff. You know, I would love it if we could make it. It'd be great. But I am watching the cannibalism, and it's happening in real time, all the time, everywhere, all the time. You have more than succeeded, James, if your words assist others to do some serious reflection. Yeah, you know, any philosopher would feel. Thank you, David. Thank you for considering. Thank you for applying the cortisol and the lack of cortisol that gives me the courage and the fear to say what we say. I swear to you, if it not only became okay, if it became sanctioned, where a suicide avenue was sanctioned in such a way, you would not see gun violence like this. It would not manifest this way. And if you don't believe me, I need you to look up suicide by cop. I need you to look up the psychology of it, because this is an entire psychology and it makes sense. I have been here. I said this just 2 weeks ago in an airship, which someone got super mad at me about, because I was suggesting that when we get older, people who love us will still abandon us, just like the people who don't love us, because there's only so many calories that you can apply to someone. If they have dementia and they're wandering around, they're crapping in their pants, and they're screaming that they want their autonomy, you're going to take their fucking rights away. And it doesn't matter if you like them or not. But we're under the impression that, well, no, if someone loved me, they wouldn't do that. Bullshit. Fucking wake up, man. Or don't wake up. Right? Don't. Just flood more cortisol when you hear me talk. But I know how we treat each other because I know how life works. Life doesn't not work this way. And you know what? I'm not even complaining. I think it's beautiful. I think the natural world's beautiful. And you know what I would hate even more is to be under the impression that somehow it'd be different. That when I die, all I have to do when I start to die is I just kind of hold my hand up and say, guys, I'm dying, and everyone's going to be nice to me. That's not what fucking happens. Do you realize that every single time that someone dies, there's usually some family member that comes in that wants to physically eat the remaining carcass of the person that just died? And these are people that love each other. And this is not me being anti-humanitarian. You're the one who thinks that. I think you're being anti-humanitarian by having this illusion, this fantasy that death turns into something different. And it doesn't. And it shouldn't. Because death be not proud. Why the fuck should it be? The moment you keep insisting that death be proud is the moment that you are the most devastated you will ever be when you set your ass down on your deathbed. Death is the loneliest place you will find yourself, and you want it that way. You want it that way. And I couldn't say this on Twitter because of how dark I am. But all of us are like insisting that the worst thing that could possibly happen is if we die alone. I want to die alone. If I have a wife or a child, I don't want the last thing that I see to be thinking about how I'm about to die and now these people don't have me anymore. And this goes both ways, by the way, because it's very likely that my wife on my deathbed might be kind of happy that I'm dying. And you can snicker about this, but this is actually true. There are people out there that are actually happy that their loved one died. They're like, oh, fuck, you finally died. Holy shit. And that is natural. That makes sense. But we live in a world where we have to insist that never happens, that it didn't happen. But it did happen. It does happen. It will happen. And it's going to happen. It's going to. Because death be not proud. And some of the worst people that treated me the worst while I was here, the moment I die, are going to tell you how them and me were the bestest of friends. And they're going to use my carcass. They're going to parade it around like how affected they are by how deeply their friend died. I see this shit all the time. And you see it with school shootings. Well, my son was shot by 17 guns. My son suffered more than yours. We see the same fucking pattern happening again because this has nothing to do with the hot dog and everything to do with the seagulls feeding. This is a very special world that we've created for ourselves. And we've created that for ourselves because we keep insisting that what we need to add to this situation is more fucking cortisol. because we live in an objective reality that has a morality basis that comes from a matrix like an algorithm, and you can plug something in and get an answer that's either moral or non-moral before you do it. That's the kind of world that we end up begging for because of all the cortisol. There's a death game in Maya world, a rubber tree from the Olmecs is processed and cooked, and it's a human skull is dipped in this mixture and it's turned into a ball, and it's wrapped with this rubber. And the sacred twins, there's the twins again. These sacred twins came down to play ball. They came down into the underworld, what you and I call the world. They came down to their underworld, what you and I call the world, to play this game. And this ball was a game of life and death. And the only way you could survive that game is if you could get your rubber ball through this hole. And it's the entire fertility process, where two divine twins, two chimeric divine twins, were forced to survive in a game of mortality. And that the Popol Vuh is describing to you what life is. And that you descended into this underworld to play this game. And that there will be a sacrifice. And there will be a survivor. And that having that set up is why the baby is born with that face. That Aztec face. When the Maya watch a plant that sprouts, the opening of the dirt, the way the dirt opens around the spout of that plant is sacred. That spout is actually what builds the world. And the ball court. The ball court looks like the spout of this plant because it has these holes, and these rubber ball has to go through the hole. The semen has to go through the hole to survive the underworld. And that what happens with the divine twins is when they go in the underworld tricks them into losing. But they are able to somehow trick back and survive. That they're still able to get the ball through the hole despite the people of the underworld thinking that they had fooled them. And that's the entire story of nature right there. It's all right there. And the Mayans did have this notion. I think we'll talk about this tomorrow. The Mayans did have this notion that what the underworld really was in its essence was fear. That every time you might step too close to the edge of a cliff, or every time you might hear or miss the running rampage of a war and somehow live, or to survive falling out of a tree, that all of these things that invoke fear, when you feel fear before you are close to death, the reason why you feel fear is because death is fear. Death is a giant state of fear. It is a giant oven of fear. It is cortisol incarnate. I'm telling you that your death is cortisol. So much cortisol that you cannot come back from it. And that the Maya didn't fear death, the Maya feared fear. And if you've seen that movie Apocalypto, it really is a fucking well done movie, I think. It really does capture that essence of how we cannot have a village with fear. It really comes back to that 5-year-old and the fork in the electrical socket. And the Maya had a different tactic at place. That thermonuclear device is what gave the Maya their power. It's not what took it away. Understanding their power means less cortisol. We should want our children to have more power. We should know and understand that our child can destroy us, that our child may destroy us, because we can destroy ourselves, and the child is us. And we may even invoke our child to destroy us because of some grander scheme that we don't even fully understand that's coming from our own nagas. We just haven't been listening. And I think this truth is so difficult that I can't even talk about it. But it happens more than you think every day. I don't recall saying that, Joel. Maybe you just heard a little bit differently, maybe. I don't even know how someone could inject cortisol into you that was not you. Cortisol is a chemical that flows from your own juices. So yeah, I think we agree on that. More tea. All right, guys. I'll sign off. You guys can think on that if you want or not. It's there's plenty to think on today. But I think the whole gun law thing is just a bunch of cortisol. That's all. And if you had to pick the way you go, is having your child be the one that takes you out, is that actually the worst way? I don't know, because I'll tell you something. The pharaoh, not pharaoh. I mean, I'll call it pharaoh in the future because I know you guys don't like that stuff, but it's actually spelled pharaoh because it used to be phalaho. Phala, the phallus, the phalloso, the O of phallus is really what pharaoh means. And the Egyptian ritual of the pharaoh, not kidding, had a ritual killing built in. This is what I mean by it. This is why I can't even talk about suicide. And I would love it if we were to have an airship where only the people that want to talk about this can talk about this, so we can actually talk about it, because the pharaoh would kill himself. Why the fuck would he do that? Why the fuck would the pharaoh kill himself? Why in the world would the most powerful person in Kemet kill himself? Because that's where all the power is. And that the pharaoh would not have been powerful had he not killed himself. This is a ritual. It's a ritual. He would actually rely on his most trusted companions to come in and stab him in his bed while he sleeps. It's a ritual. He knew the day. He ate his meal knowing that night that his most trusted the people he trusted the most were to come in and take him the fuck out. Does anybody knew that? Did anybody know that? You should read my latest book, Ark of Baphomet. Do you understand how different this is? This thought? This honoring of the thermonuclear device? The actual pharaoh would end his own life. We'll see you next time, guys. I'm going to end the show just as a pharaoh would end his own life. Thanks for being here. Have a great day. I walked along the avenue. I never thought I'd meet a girl like you. Meet a girl like you. With auburn hair and tawny eyes. The kind of eyes that hypnotize me through. Hypnotize me through. And I ran so far away. I just ran. I ran all night and day.